My name is Jennifer. I was born just 3 minutes after my twin sister Rachel. But those 3 minutes might as well have been a lifetime, given how differently our parents treated us. Our family lived in a 2-story white house in the suburbs of Nashville, Tennessee. My mother, Catherine, was a well-known real estate agent, always appearing with neatly styled hair, an expensive suit, and a phone that never left her hand. My father, Marcus, ran a small accounting office, buried in ledgers all day, rarely looking up to acknowledge his younger daughter. At first glance, we seemed like a typical middle-class family, perhaps even admirable. But only those who lived in that house knew the truth. Fairness never existed there. From a very young age, I could feel that my parents' love was never equally divided. When Rachel and I were about 4, Mom used to take us shopping on weekends, but every time we left the mall, Rachel's bags were always heavier. She got the newest Converse sneakers while I had to pretend to be excited about the discounted pair from the bottom shelf. Every time Rachel pointed at something, it almost instantly ended up in the shopping cart, and when I carefully asked, "Mom, can I have?" she'd cut me off with a cold glance. Not always, Jennifer. Our earliest birthday gifts made it clear where I stood in their hearts. Though we shared the same birthday, Rachel always got the bigger slice of cake, the prettier presents, and more people wishing her well. I remember quietly counting. 11 people hugged her. 3 hugged me, and 2 of those were housekeepers. It was the same with toys. Rachel had an entire shelf of limited edition Barbies, while I played with soft plastic dolls with thinning hair, probably from the clearance bin at the local store. Even our mini strollers were different. Hers was pink and played music. Mine was dull gray with squeaky, stuck wheels. I used to convince myself I was just imagining things, that maybe I was too sensitive. But when we started preschool, the favoritism was no longer subtle. It was impossible to deny. On the first day of class, Mom dressed us in identical uniforms, red plaid skirts, white blouses, and knee-high socks. I remember feeling excited that finally we looked the same in adults' eyes. But when Mom stood on the steps holding up her phone, I heard her voice ring out clearly. "Rachel, sweetheart, lift your chin. Tilt your head just a little. Perfect." And me? I was just a blurry shadow next to her, my eyes peeking out from behind Rachel's shoulder. After that day, everything followed a set pattern. Every afternoon, Mom would park at the school gate, open the car door, and say the familiar line, "Jennifer, go home and do your homework. I'm taking Rachel to art class." Monday was art, Tuesday piano, Wednesday dance, Thursday acting, and Friday, sometimes just ice cream to relax after a long week. I'd walk into an empty house, drop my backpack on the chair, and cook instant noodles. The only sound was the ticking clock, occasionally interrupted by the washing machine spinning loudly. When I asked why I couldn't take art classes like Rachel, Mom just sighed. "Not everyone is cut out for the arts. You should focus on doing well in school. That would be better." So I did. I studied hard. But my good grades never once made my parents pause their dinner to applaud me, the way they did when Rachel drew a cat that looked like a smudged ink blot. I started to realize something. No matter how hard I tried, I only became more invisible in my own home. Rachel was always the center, and I was just the background, a forgettable detail people looked right past. When we turned 10, Mom started talking about investing in the future. I didn't fully understand what she meant, but I listened carefully. Eventually, I realized that investment only applied to Rachel. New extracurriculars every month, violin lessons downtown, Wednesday night coding classes, weekend debate clubs. And me, I once asked if I could join a creative writing group at the local library. Without even looking up from her phone, Mom replied coldly, "Not this month, money's tight." A few days later, I saw her swipe her credit card to buy Rachel a new performance dress at a boutique downtown. I said nothing. I had learned that speaking up only earned me cold stares or carefully crafted excuses. "You don't understand. Rachel has talent. You just need to focus on your studies." So I did. I buried myself in books as the only way to prove I deserved to be seen. Math quizzes? I always got perfect scores. Essays? My teacher often used mine as the class example. I was even chosen to represent our class in the district debate, even though I had never joined a club before. But that night at dinner, when I proudly told everyone I'd be representing the school, Mom barely nodded before turning to Rachel. "Sweetheart, how was art class today?" I remember going silent, my hand gripping the fork, lips pressed together so I wouldn't say something I'd regret. I started writing everything down in a journal hidden under my pillow. Every comment that hurt, every moment I was ignored, every time I wondered, if I didn't exist, would anything be different? The answer came on a cloudy night when I crept downstairs for a glass of water after studying late. The house was strangely quiet. Light spilled from the living room, and I slowed my steps. I heard my father's voice, low and tired, as if shedding a mask. "Do you think we really need to try with both girls?" he asked. Mom sighed. "Jennifer's fine. She can handle herself. See? She runs without being pushed. But Rachel's different. She needs us to push, to guide. She has potential, Marcus. She was born to shine." "What about Jennifer?" My father's voice lowered. "Have you ever thought that if we only had Rachel, life would have been less stressful?" I stood frozen in the hallway. My chest felt tight, like my heart had been squeezed. I bit my lip to stop myself from crying out loud. "She's a good kid," my mother said, her voice softer. "But sometimes, I feel like having just one would have been enough." I turned around and ran to my room. The notebook under my pillow was no longer a place for memories. That night, I tore out each page and threw them slowly into the trash. With every sheet I dropped, it felt like I was letting go of the last pieces of faith I had left. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I didn't ask why. I just sat there, staring at the ceiling where those glow-in-the-dark stars we once stuck up as kids still hung. I counted them. Rachel had 27 stars. I had only 13. Even the sky above my bed was divided unfairly. But I swore to myself, if they couldn't see me while I was right in front of them, then someday, they'd have no choice but to look up. When I was standing tall, where no one could ignore me. After that night, I felt reborn. I no longer longed for Mom to pat my head when I got a good grade, or for Dad to ask how school was going. I stopped trying to be seen. Instead, I started studying for myself. I spent most of my time in the school library. I arrived earlier than anyone, stayed later than everyone. I read more than the textbooks required, took neat notes, practiced sample tests that others never bothered to look at. The teachers noticed. Mr. Brandt, our history teacher, called on me for the first time in class. "Jennifer, what's your opinion on Roosevelt's New Deal policy?" I looked up, a bit surprised. Then I started answering, point by point with examples I had prepared the night before. When I finished, the class was silent for a few seconds, before he nodded slowly. "Very good. Precise, insightful, and articulate." I caught Rachel glancing at me, her eyes filled with disbelief, as if she had just witnessed something unnatural. That surprise quickly turned into irritation. When my English essay was posted on the board as a model, Rachel mumbled to her friend next to her. "The teachers are clearly biased. They probably feel sorry for her, that's why they're praising her." More and more, teachers began to trust me. Ms. Lane asked me to lead our end-of-term discussion group. Mr. Reynolds nominated me for the state academic competition team. Rachel reacted more strongly each time. She'd tap her pen angrily on her desk whenever I was praised, or deliberately voiced opposing opinions during debates, even if they barely made sense. And one day I walked into class and noticed Rachel wasn't at her seat. The room felt different. Students were whispering. The principal had just left. Miss Lane waved me into the hallway. "Jennifer, there's something you should know," she said gently, still composed. "Your mother came to the school. She's in the principal's office. Rachel told her that teachers were intentionally favoring you to make her feel small." I stood still. I wasn't surprised Rachel said that, but I hadn't expected Mom to actually show up at school. I walked quietly past the office and peeked through the glass. There she was, Catherine Harper, in a plum-colored business dress, arms crossed, pointing at some documents the principal was trying to explain. Rachel is an outstanding student, but Jennifer, all she does is bury herself in books. She's not a leader. She's not creative. Pushing her like this is only hurting my daughter. The principal stayed calm. Mrs. Harper, we have clear academic records. Jennifer ranks highest in 4 core subjects. All her teachers unanimously agree. I heard my mother say, grades aren't everything. Your teachers are clearly biased. A few minutes later, she left the office. I ducked into the side hallway before she could see me, but inside, something had gone cold. That night, I heard her footsteps as she returned home. Rachel's door opened, then closed again. I couldn't hear the conversation, but I heard their soft laughter, the kind I'd never once heard directed at me. The next morning, when I arrived at school, a small envelope was on the teacher's desk. I didn't need to open it to know what it said, but Mr. Brandt spoke before I could react. Jennifer, don't let outside noise get to you. You deserve every bit of recognition you're receiving. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. I know, and I won't stop. I returned to my desk, opened my notebook. On the first page, I had written a line I reminded myself of every day. They may not choose me, but I will choose myself. From that moment on, I didn't just study to escape the darkness. I studied to become the light. When I turned 16, I decided to get a part-time job at a bakery 3 blocks from home. It was a small shop called Sugar Bloom, with cream-colored walls and the scent of butter cookies always hanging in the air. The owner, Martha, was in her 40s, usually tied her hair with a silk scarf, and always wore a warm smile. I didn't tell Mom. I knew she wouldn't approve. To her, getting a job at this age meant you have no direction. But to me, it meant a little bit of freedom in a world where I was rarely allowed to choose. That evening, wearing my pale pink apron and hair tied up neatly, I walked out the door. Rachel glanced up from her phone and smirked. Going to be a waitress? Cool. Just try not to drop cake on someone's dress. I didn't answer, but inside I knew. I had just taken my first step out of the shadow they kept forcing me into. After a few weeks, I managed to save my first small paycheck. It wasn't much, but enough for me to buy the books I loved without second thoughts. One evening, while looking for modern social change in America in Mom's office bookshelf, I accidentally knocked over a stack of old folders. While cleaning up, I found a worn, light brown notebook. The first page had a handwritten note. Emergency contacts, do not use. I flipped through a few pages and stopped at an entry labeled Clara and Henry Whitmore, no contact, number blocked. Below it was a handwritten address in the southern part of the city. I'd never heard of before. Clara Whitmore? I whispered the name to myself all night. The surname matched Mom's maiden name. Henry. Maybe my grandfather? But why had I never heard of them? The next day, while Mom and Rachel were off at their weekend spa appointment, I took bus 14 to the address in the notebook. It led me to a small, sky-blue wooden house with a short white fence and a front yard full of blooming yellow daisies. The house was modest, simple, but full of life. I hesitated a few seconds before knocking. A petite woman with silver hair opened the door. She stared at me, her expression shifting from surprise to confusion. "Who are you?" she asked softly. I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. "I'm Jennifer Harper. I think you might be my grandmother?" She raised her hand to her mouth and stepped back slightly, as if she was seeing a ghost from her past. Behind her, a man with snowy white hair and thick glasses appeared, holding a cup of tea. When he saw me, he almost dropped it. "Clara, look closely. It's her. It's our granddaughter." None of us said a word for several minutes. Then Grandma Clara pulled me into the house, wrapping me in a hug so tight, it felt like she was afraid I might disappear. That little house was like a whole different world compared to the cold one I grew up in. The walls were covered with hand-drawn pictures and old photographs. The scent of apple pie lingered in the air. They invited me to sit at the dining table, poured me a cup of hot tea, and began asking me question after question. They knew who I was, but had never had the chance to meet me. After your mother got married, she said we were too old-fashioned, that we didn't fit her new lifestyle, Grandpa Henry said. And then she cut us off. We called, wrote letters, but never heard back. You're the first to come find us, Grandma Clara said, her eyes red. We used to dream of taking you to the zoo, teaching you how to bake, but then I didn't say a word. My throat was tight. I didn't have the heart to tell them that I had only learned their names less than 24 hours ago. I stayed until evening, helped Grandma wash dishes, and listened to Grandpa tell stories from his youth. Before I left, he handed me a small envelope for bus fare. And if you'd like, next time, stay for dinner. On the way home, I opened the envelope. Inside, along with a bit of cash, was a handwritten note. You are always welcome here, always. I held on to that note all night. For the first time in my life, I felt like I belonged somewhere that didn't require conditions or achievements. Just me, as I was. Graduation day came faster than I expected. The last months of senior year flew by in a blur of heavy schedules, final exams, and late nights studying at the library. And then, that morning, I stood on the stage of West Haven High's auditorium in a navy blue gown, listening to the announcer call my name as the valedictorian of the class of 2024. Applause echoed through the room, but when I looked down at the row reserved for parents, I saw my mother looking at her phone, and my father chatting with Rachel, who sighed loudly like I had just stolen her spotlight. I walked up to the podium, accepted my diploma, and gave my short thank you speech. My voice was steady, every word clear, but inside I felt strangely hollow. That evening there was no celebration, no balloons, no cake, no congratulations Jennifer sign. Just an ordinary dinner, grilled fish and salad. My mom told Rachel to cut back on fried food to stay fit for the upcoming trip, and Dad talked about a difficult client at work. No one mentioned me, even though I had just graduated top of the class. After I finished washing the dishes and was heading upstairs, Mom suddenly called out. Her voice was unusually excited. Jennifer, sit down. I have some good news. I sat down slowly, tilting my head slightly, hoping for something unexpected. We're going to Hawaii, a 5-day vacation in Maui to celebrate Rachel's graduation, Mom announced like she was revealing the winner of a game show. Rachel smiled, not forgetting to give me a smug little look. I froze. We means who? I asked slowly. Mom waved her hand like it was no big deal. Oh, your dad, me, and Rachel. I only booked 3 tickets. You know how expensive flights are this time of year. Plus, someone has to stay home and keep working at the bakery. I looked her straight in the eyes. So you mean I'm staying behind? Alone. She placed a hand on my shoulder, her expression like she was comforting a child who just dropped their ice cream. You understand. You're strong, independent. We trust you. I didn't say another word. I stood up, nodded like a machine, and quietly went upstairs. The next morning, when I heard the car door slam shut, I peeked out the window. They were loading suitcases into the trunk. Rachel wore a cream maxi dress, her hair softly curled, holding her plane ticket and favorite latte. Mom waved up at me. Rachel beamed. I'll tag you in my beach pics, okay? Don't be jealous. The car door closed, and their SUV slowly pulled out of the driveway. I turned away, picked up my phone, and for the first time in months, I called the number saved under a simple name. Grandma and Grandpa. Grandma Clara's voice answered, warm and steady as always. I couldn't hold back the tears. They left. I choked. They just left me, like I'm nothing. Oh, sweetheart, don't cry. Come over right now. We're going to throw you the graduation celebration you truly deserve. I arrived at their house by noon. That little home was decorated with white and blue ribbons, balloons hanging from the windows, the The table was covered with a white cloth, and on it sat a chocolate cake with frosting that read, "Congratulations, Jennifer, our amazing valedictorian." But that wasn't all. After a lunch filled with all my favorite dishes, crispy baked lasagna and fruit salad, Grandpa Henry placed a small black box on the table. "You've done something very few people ever do. We're so proud of you, and this is our gift to you." I opened the box. Inside was a brand new car key, with a keychain engraved with the words, "Always believe in your own path." My eyes widened. You're kidding, right?" Grandpa smiled and pointed toward the window. In the front yard sat a milk-white Audi Q3, sparkling new. The license plate hadn't been installed yet, and the documents were still tucked in a plastic sleeve hanging behind the seat. "That car is yours, a graduation gift from us," Grandma Clara said, holding my hand. "We've been planning this for a long time, just waiting for the right moment." I hugged them tightly, tears streaming down my face, but no longer from pain. For the first time in my life, I felt like I didn't have to bleed for recognition. 2 weeks passed after their trip to Hawaii, and I lived in days more peaceful and warm than any vacation I had ever imagined. In the mornings, I drove my new Audi to Sugar Bloom Bakery, bringing butter cookies for my grandparents. In the evenings, I helped Grandma Clara prepare dinner while Grandpa Henry read the paper and told stories from his days as an engineer. For the first time, I felt at ease, no longer straining to earn affection. The Audi parked neatly in front of our house, a quiet symbol of something my parents had never given me: recognition, trust, and unconditional love. And then the day I had predicted finally came. It was a mild Friday afternoon in Nashville. I was reading on the porch with a cup of chamomile tea still warm in my hands when the familiar SUV slowly pulled into the driveway. The three of them stepped out, Mom in a purple silk maxi dress, Dad with his sunglasses on, and Rachel, of course, in a designer outfit, dragging her suitcase like she was arriving on a red carpet. Her Mom was the first to see the car. She froze mid-step, lips pressed tight, her eyes moving from the Audi logo to the temporary tag, then to the chrome side mirrors. Rachel squinted, shielding her eyes from the sun, then turned to me. "Whose car is that?" I stood up, smiling softly. "Mine." Dad walked closer, his voice slower. "Jennifer, are you joking? That car costs over 40 grand. I nodded, pulled the key from my pocket and twirled it around my finger. Just like Rachel used to do with her designer purse straps. A graduation gift, from Grandma Clara and Grandpa Henry. Silence fell for a few seconds. My mother's face changed color faster than when she saw the stock market drop. She immediately grabbed her phone, dialing so quickly her hands were almost shaking. Dad stood frozen, and Rachel let out a short laugh, half mocking, half unsure. The call connected. "Clara, it's Catherine. I need an explanation. You bought Jennifer a car? Do you even realize what this implies?" I could hear Grandma Clara's voice clearly over speaker. Warm, calm, unfazed. "Hello, dear. Did you enjoy your Hawaii vacation? That has nothing to do with this. How could you even afford that? All this time, we've kept quiet because we don't need to show off, Catherine." She cut in gently but firmly. "After you cut us off, we invested in a few tech ventures. Now, we live comfortably and have chosen to use the rest to support someone who truly values family." Mom gripped the phone tighter. "Jennifer is my granddaughter, but so is Rachel. If there's a gift, it should be fair. She needs a car too. She's getting ready for college." I almost laughed. She'd just got back from Hawaii, tan and covered in Instagram check-ins, and now she wanted fairness? Then Grandpa Henry's voice came in, deep and steady. "Catherine, fairness is a good thing, but you seem to have forgotten that fairness must come with love. Jennifer has never been treated like a daughter by you. Now, we've chosen her as our heir. All our assets, savings, and property will be in her name." Rachel's eyes widened, and my father murmured, "Catherine? You haven't spoken to them in years. How could you know they even had that kind of wealth?" Mom stood frozen, the phone still to her ear, but nothing more was said. The line had gone dead. Her eyes darkened and she turned to me. Jennifer, you need to think carefully. You know Rachel needs the car for school. You're just working at a bakery. You don't need something this fancy. I stepped closer, popped open the trunk. The suitcases I had packed 2 days earlier sat neatly inside. I pulled out an envelope and handed it to her. Inside is a copy of my acceptance letter from Columbia University. I received a full scholarship, tuition, housing, living expenses, all covered. And no, I won't be working at the bakery forever. But at least I'll never have to trade my dignity for affection. Rachel wasn't smiling anymore. Dad said nothing, just looked at me like he had lost something he never realized was important. I had just opened the car door when Mom stepped in front of it, arms crossed, eyes sharp, like she was about to deliver a lecture. Jennifer, you can't keep that car, she said coldly, her patience clearly gone. Rachel is the one who needs it for school. She just got into State University. And you? Aren't you just working at a bakery? I looked up at her, gripping the wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I don't work at the bakery anymore. And I'm not staying here. Dad finally spoke, his voice low and pressuring. Jennifer, you need to be realistic. Rachel has a college plan, a social network, a future. She needs the car to build that. And you? What do you have? I reached into my bag, pulled out a neatly clipped folder and handed it to him. An acceptance letter from Columbia with a full scholarship, covers tuition, housing, and living expenses. They both stood speechless for a few seconds. Rachel stopped typing on her phone, turning to me as if she couldn't believe what she had just heard. Columbia? My mom repeated, her voice suddenly quieter. You mean New York? I nodded. Yes. I'll be studying law and social policy. Classes start in 3 weeks. But why didn't you say anything? Dad asked. For the first time in my life, I saw genuine confusion in his eyes. I shrugged. Because I already knew what you'd say. We can't afford it, it's not necessary, save it for Rachel. I looked up, locking eyes with Mom. But my grandparents believed in me. They thought I was worth it. Rachel stepped forward, arms crossed, scoffing. What about the car? You're seriously taking that to New York? Where are you going to park it? Right outside your dorm? Trying to make a scene? I turned back, opened the trunk, revealing 2 large suitcases, a tote bag, and a neatly wrapped laptop. I had been ready long before they returned. Don't worry, I said, closing the trunk. You won't have to see it, because I won't be coming back. Mom stood speechless, then suddenly changed her tone. Jennifer, listen to me. Don't overreact. I just want what's best for both of you. Every family plays favorites sometimes, but that doesn't mean we don't love you. I shook my head, lips pressed tightly. Love can't be one-sided. I can't keep living with that kind of a little bit anymore. My dad stepped forward, placing his hand on the car door. If you drive that car away, you'll be on your own. No one here will help you anymore. I looked at him, really looked, and for the first time I saw the conditions behind everything they'd ever called help. And I knew. I was ready to let it go. I'll take responsibility for my own life, one step at a time. I closed the door and started the engine. Rachel stood with her hands on her hips, trying to smirk, but her eyes betrayed her. My mom turned away, staring at the concrete driveway like she was searching for a comeback she couldn't find. My dad still stood there, his hand now off the car but not stepping back. Jennifer? He said. His voice, for once, without command. If you ever feel overwhelmed, you can... I'll be okay. I cut him off with a small nod. And this time, I don't need anyone to confirm that. I pressed the gas. The Audi rolled slowly away from the familiar driveway. In the rearview mirror, I saw them, those 3 figures still standing there, growing smaller in the distance. The road ahead didn't promise to be easy, but it was mine, not handed to me, not paved by anyone else. Each step forward was a step of true freedom. I left Nashville on a late summer morning, the sky unusually clear. The Audi glided along the interstate, and ahead of me opened a brand new chapter. New York City, Columbia University, youthful dreams, and a completely new life waiting to unfold. My grandparents insisted on driving behind me in Grandpa Henry's old sedan. They didn't say much, but I knew every time I looked in the mirror, they were still there. Steady, silent, and full of faith. Before we parted ways, Grandma Clara hugged me tightly outside the dorm gates. "You've gone farther than anyone ever imagined," she said, her warm eyes glowing with pride. "And you never had to do it alone." I smiled, burying my face on her shoulder. I had never felt so protected, even though I was officially on my own now. College life swept me into a completely new rhythm. Classes at Columbia were challenging, with brilliant professors and classmates from all over the world. I worked part-time at a small bookstore near Brooklyn, where the smell of old pages and the soft jingle of the front door brought me more peace than anything else. I began building a life where I didn't need to look over my shoulder for permission. No more judgmental stares, no more subtle comparisons masked in sweet words. Here, I was Jennifer, not Rachel's little sister, not the obedient one, just me. A few weeks later, Grandma Clara called me with news that didn't surprise me. "They came by this morning," she said, her voice calm, as if savoring each word. "Brought a fruit basket and plenty of apologies." I stayed silent for a moment. "What did they say?" "They said they missed you, that the family should come together again, that Rachel is struggling with tuition and thought, maybe we could help." I clenched the phone, but Grandma Clara's voice remained steady. "We invited them in, made tea, but didn't say much. And after they left, your grandpa and I agreed everything. The property, savings, bank accounts, it's all going to you." I sat still in my dorm room, the afternoon light streaming through the window onto my law textbooks. I didn't know what I felt. Bitterness, vindication, or sadness. "Grandma," I whispered, "are you sure? I don't need—" "It's not because you need it," she interrupted, gentle but firm. "It's because you deserve it. You're the only one who never treated us like a burden." Tears welled up. In that moment, I knew. True love never comes with conditions. I didn't respond to the message my mom sent 2 days later, her first text in over a month. She used that familiar tone. "I know you're upset, but we're still family, right?" I wasn't upset anymore. I didn't feel resentment. I simply no longer felt the need to hold on to something that was never really mine. I hit block contact without hesitation. Time flew in New York. I adjusted better than I expected. My new friends, Layla, an Egyptian-American journalism major, and Ethan, an economics student from Oregon, made me feel truly valued. We studied together at Butler Library, grabbed midnight pizza from the corner shop, and on some nights sat on the dorm balcony, watching the city lights sparkle, dreaming about the future, like it was all within reach. One Sunday night, after closing the bookstore, I got a message from Ethan. "Coffee on the corner, 9 p.m. I've already got us a table." I looked at my phone and smiled. No more pressure to prove myself. No more comparisons. No more hunger for love that came only with pity. I had my life, a beginning that wasn't perfect, but an ending shaped by my own choice. I chose myself, chose peace, and chose to move forward without looking back. From my own story, I've realized that not every wound needs healing through forgiveness. Sometimes what we really need is to let go. I once tried so hard to be acknowledged, but I found my worth only when I stopped seeking validation from those who never truly valued me. Family isn't just where we come from. It's where we're loved without conditions. And true happiness begins the moment we find the courage to choose ourselves. What do you think of Jennifer's decision? Should she have forgiven her family? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more heartfelt and meaningful family stories. I stood in front of the black iron gates of the beachfront mansion my family still called the Happy House. It used to be a childhood paradise, but now, it was just a perfect picture of memories that no longer belonged to me. I leaned against the car, catching my reflection in the window glass. My hair blue in the sea breeze, my eyes tired but still holding a spark. I had driven 4 hours to get here, hoping that this time they'd greet me with a hug instead of disdainful glances. "Oh, wow, Allison, you actually made it," came the sweet but mocking voice of my sister Madison from the backyard. She was laughing loudly, holding a cocktail glass, her golden hair shining under the sun. Around her were relatives and friends, all looking at me with curious eyes. "Didn't think you'd show up," Madison smirked, her eyes scanning me from head to toe. "I figured you'd be busy doing something insignificant." I clenched the car keys, feeling the heat rise in my palms. I hadn't been here since the last time they laughed at me for losing my job. And now, while Madison flaunted her designer dress, I was still wearing the same old jeans, the only thing I could afford after paying rent this month. I stepped into the house, and the sound of laughter echoed from the living room. My mother stood in the center, holding a wine glass, her eyes shining as she looked at Madison. My father stood beside her, arm around Madison, his face beaming with pride. "Look at this! Our wonderful daughter is now a manager," my mother announced, her voice loud and thrilled, not even glancing at me for a single second. Madison giggled, her eyes glinting with smug satisfaction. "The company threw a celebration party for me. Naturally, everyone was there. Except you." I bit down on my lip, forcing my voice to stay steady. "Mom, Dad, I just drove 4 hours to be here. Can I talk to you for a minute?" My father looked at me, his expression blank. "Can't you see Madison is talking about her new job? Try not to ruin the moment, Allison." My throat tightened. Everyone was laughing, clinking glasses in a toast to Madison. I just stood there, silent and invisible, like a stranger in my own family. "Oh, Allison, I just remembered." Madison sauntered over to me, still holding her cocktail glass. "Mom and Dad said I could stay in the apartment you're renting. After all, you don't need that much space." I frowned. "What do you mean?" Madison shrugged, her lips curling into a smug grin. "I mean, they think you should move somewhere else. You know, I need the space for work. And they paid the deposit for that place, so—" "They paid the deposit?" I repeated, barely able to believe my ears. My mother stepped forward, her eyes cold. "Allison, you need to understand that Madison needs that apartment to focus on her new job. And you can manage on your own, right?" I stood there, stunned. Yes, they had paid the deposit, but it was with money from my savings account. The money I'd spent 6 years scraping together. They had promised to pay it back. But now, Madison shot me a pitying look. "You're always so strong, Allison. You'll be fine." A lump rose in my throat. I no longer recognized the people standing before me. They weren't family. They were just strangers dressed in fancy clothes, laughing about my sister's success without a single thought about me. The one they always called the disappointment. I turned and walked quickly out of the beachfront mansion. The ocean wind hit me, carrying the scent of salt and the sting of betrayal. I looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath to keep the tears at bay. One question echoed in my mind. Why was I always the one to sacrifice while they only took? But I knew today would be the last time they'd treat me like a disappointment. I came here to say goodbye, and this time, I wasn't coming back. I drove back to the tiny apartment I'd rented after losing my job. It was on the 7th floor of an old building, with no elevator and a constant musty smell. This wasn't where I'd imagined living at 33. Not after being the deputy financial director at a major company. But as the door closed behind me, I felt an odd sense of calm. At least here, I didn't have to watch Madison's smug grin or my mother's cold eyes. I tossed the keys onto the table and headed to the kitchen to make a cup of coffee. The old coffee maker sputtered and groaned, a reminder that even the small things in my life were falling apart. My phone buzzed, a message from my mother. "Allison, your father and I just spoke with Madison. She'll be moving into that apartment next week. Please make arrangements to move out by Friday. It's for Madison's benefit. We hope you understand." I closed my eyes, struggling to keep the anger from boiling over. For Madison's benefit? What about me? Since when did I become a stranger in the very apartment I had paid for? Part of me wanted to call them right away, to scream that they were being completely unfair, but I knew it would only make them look down on me more. In their eyes, I was always the failure, the one who never met the family's expectations. Meanwhile, Madison was the golden child. She dropped out of college, drifted from job to job, but still received my mother's unconditional love. Whenever Madison failed, my mother was there to bail her out. But when I lost my job, my mother said, "See, I told you to choose a more stable career." The phone rang again. I looked at the screen. It was Luke, Madison's ex-boyfriend. Why was he calling me? "Luke?" I answered, my voice wary. "Allison," he said quickly, his breath heavy. "Can you meet me at the cafe on the corner of Market and Pine? There's something you need to know." "What is it?" "Just come," he said, his voice tense. "Trust me. You need to hear this." 15 minutes later, I walked into the cafe, scanning the room until I spotted Luke in a corner booth. He was wearing a hoodie, holding a coffee cup but not drinking it. His eyes were dark-circled like he hadn't slept in days. "Allison." Luke nodded as I sat down. "I don't even know where to start." "Start with why you're contacting me after 3 years, I said, folding my arms. Luke took a deep breath and let it out. "Madison, she's hiding something from everyone." "What is it?" I frowned. "That car she's been showing off. Do you know where the money came from?" "From my savings," I said through clenched teeth. Luke shook his head. "Not just that. She took out a personal loan using your name." My whole body went cold. "What did you just say?" "Madison forged your signature to get a loan. It's $60,000. I couldn't breathe. $60,000. That was more than enough to put a down payment on the apartment I'd been dreaming of. "You have to do something, Allison," Luke said, his eyes full of concern. "She's spending your money like it's hers. And the worst part is, your parents know." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "They know and they still let her do it?" "They don't just know." Luke gritted his teeth. "They helped her do it." I stood up, feeling my face flush with heat. "I need to go." "Thanks, Luke." "Be careful, Allison," Luke called after me as I rushed out of the cafe. "Madison, she's not the person you used to know." I hurried back to my apartment, my heart pounding like it was about to burst. One thought echoed in my mind. How could Madison do this to me? And how could my parents help her? Standing in front of my apartment door, I saw a large cardboard box sitting right in the middle of the hallway. On top was a note with scrawled handwriting. "Move your stuff out. Madison needs the room." I clenched my fists, my fingers trembling. Madison had taken everything from me. My efforts, my money, even the roof over my head. The laptop screen lit up with a familiar notification sound. I clicked on the email icon, determined not to let myself get lost in a storm of emotions. But then, the subject line appeared like a knife twisting into my chest. "Family reunion this weekend, the Blake family." I slowly opened the email. Beneath the flowery words, the fake scent of unity hung in the air, like cheap perfume. "Dear Allison, we're hosting a family reunion this weekend at the beach house. Madison will be in charge of organizing it. There will be many special surprises for everyone. Unfortunately, due to limited seating, you won't be able to attend. Hope you understand. Love, Mom." I let out a dry, bitter laugh, my anger rising like a wave. Limited seating? Right. I knew exactly what the real reason was. To them, I had always been the extra, the one who never fit into the perfect family picture they were painting. I stood up and walked to the window, staring down at the street below. The headlights of passing cars flashed by, people moving like shadows without direction. Everyone had a place to go, a place to call home. But me? Even after contributing thousands of dollars to that beach house, I was still considered an outsider. The beach house. I closed my eyes, the image of it playing like a slow-motion film in my mind. The white house with blue-tiled roof, the wide balcony facing the ocean. It was once a paradise for Madison and me as kids. But now, it was just the place where Madison threw lavish parties, flaunting her glamorous life funded by my money. The ringing phone snapped me back to reality. It was Lucas, my best friend from college, and also my financial advisor. Lucas, what's going on? I answered, my voice still tinged with a dull ache. Are you sitting down? Lucas asked, his tone unusually serious. What's wrong? A sense of foreboding washed over me. The beach house, it's up for sale. My heart stopped for a second. What? They're selling it. They owe the bank over $100,000. Madison just applied for another loan to cover the debt, but got denied. Now they have no choice but to sell the house. I sank back into the chair, my fingers trembling. They were selling the house that I once considered my last refuge. They were selling it without even bothering to tell me. The one who paid for the roof repairs, the insurance when Madison set the kitchen on fire, trying to cook while drunk. Lucas, I said, my voice suddenly calm and cold. Can you do me a favor? Of course. What do you need me to do? I want to buy that house. Immediately. Lucas went silent for a moment. Are you sure? That's a lot of money. I know, I said firmly. But I'm not letting them sell it to someone else. Not the place that holds all my memories. I'll handle all the legal work. But are you planning to buy it under your name? I shook my head, even though Lucas couldn't see me. No. I want it purchased under the real estate company I just formed last month. They won't suspect a thing. I don't want them to know I'm the one holding the deed to that house. Got it, Lucas replied. I'll take care of it. Do you want me to keep you posted? No, I said, my eyes fixed on the laptop screen, where my mother's email was still open. I just need to know the day they officially get evicted. I hung up, taking a deep breath. In my mind, the image of Madison laughing as she pushed me out of the apartment she stole was still crystal clear. The beach house was their last source of pride. The place where Madison and my mother threw parties, bragging about their perfect family. But now, I was the one holding the keys. I would let them keep pretending, let them keep hosting family gatherings without me, in a house they believed was still theirs. 3 months later, I stood on the 32nd floor of Glassview Tower, the headquarters of Westfield & Co. Through the glass windows, I could see the entire city of Los Angeles gleaming under the golden sun. A strange feeling rose in my chest. The feeling of someone standing at the top, but still not fully believing it was real. 3 months ago, I was a jobless nobody, looked down upon by my family, pushed out of my apartment by my sister. But now, I was the international vice president of Westfield & Co., the one who just closed a merger deal worth over $150 million with Richardson Financial Group. This merger not only brought millions of dollars in revenue to my company, but also solidified my position in the financial industry, a field my family never considered me capable of succeeding in. A knock on the door pulled me out of my thoughts. The door swung open, and Lucas walked in holding a newspaper. "Take a look at this," he said, his smile proud. "I think you'll like this article." He placed the newspaper on the table in front of me. The headline hit me like a lightning bolt. Allison Blake, The woman who changed the financial landscape of Westfield and Co. Beneath it was a photo of me shaking hands with the senior executives of Richardson. My smile, confident, my face glowing. "I can't believe it," I whispered. "Everything happened so fast." "You did it, Allison," Lucas said, sitting across from me, his expression serious. "And now, everyone has to recognize it." I nodded, my eyes still fixed on the newspaper. In my mind, the image of my family flashed, especially my mother and Madison. They had always seen me as a failure, someone incapable of achieving anything substantial. But now, what would they say when they saw my face on the cover of the top financial magazine? "I just got a call from a TV station," Lucas said, leaning forward. "They want you to do an interview about the Richardson merger and your upcoming plans in Hong Kong." I looked up. "Hong Kong?" Lucas smiled. "Didn't you hear? The board just approved your new position as International VP. And the new headquarters will be based in Hong Kong. You'll be managing the entire Asia-Pacific region." My heart skipped a beat. Hong Kong. The city of lights, opportunities, and endless possibilities. I'd once dreamed of working there, but never imagined I'd be in such a high-ranking position. "You deserve this, Allison," Lucas said, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "But before you head to Hong Kong, I think you should see this." Lucas pulled out his phone, tapped a few buttons, and handed it to me. It was a live video stream from a party at the beach house. The house I secretly purchased. In the video, Madison was standing in the middle of the living room, holding a wine glass, her shrill laughter echoing. "Everyone, let's raise a glass to me. Today, I officially became the new business director of the family company." The crowd erupted in applause. Madison stepped to the center of the room, raising her glass high. "I told you all. I finally have it all. This house, the director position, and everyone's recognition." Lucas paused the video and looked at me, his expression serious. "They have no idea you bought that house, do they?" I gave him a half smile. "No, and I don't plan on telling them. At least not yet." Lucas tilted his head, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. "So, when are you going to reveal the truth?" "I'm going to wait until everyone is settled in Hong Kong," I said, my gaze fixed on the expansive view outside. "Then I'll send the official notice. And when they find out that the house they were so proud of actually belongs to me, I want to be there to see their faces." Lucas raised an eyebrow, visibly surprised. "You've really changed, Allison. From the girl they trampled on to a strong, ruthless businesswoman?" "No," I said, eyes still locked on the skyline. "I'm still Allison. I've just learned to fight back instead of bowing down." At that moment, my phone rang. An unfamiliar number flashed on the screen. "Hello?" I answered. "Allison?" My mother's voice trembled, laced with desperation. "I just read the article about you. Is it true? You're really the international vice president at Westfield & Co.?" I let out a bitter laugh, each word from her like a knife slicing through my chest. "Yes, Mom. Now you finally see the truth, don't you?" There was silence on the other end. I thought she'd hung up until she spoke again, her voice shaky. "Allison, can you help Madison? She's in serious trouble." I gripped the phone, my breathing quickening. "Help Madison? The one who stole my apartment, drained my savings, and threw parties in the house she didn't even know I owned? Allison, are you still there?" I closed my eyes, taking a deep breath. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, the moment I would show them. I was no longer the pushover Allison they could easily take advantage of. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, my voice as cold as ice. "I'm busy preparing for my flight to Hong Kong, and this time I'm not looking back." I hung up, feeling like I had just severed the final chain tying me to the past. Lucas stepped closer, placing a reassuring hand on my shoulder. Hong Kong will be a new chapter for you. A chapter you write for yourself. I nodded, eyes steely. And this time, no one will take it from me. On a bright, clear day, a gentle sea breeze swept through the trees. I stood in the living room of the beach house. The house that once belonged to my family. Now it was mine. And they had no idea. I wore a cream-colored dress, sharp heels, and my hair was neatly pulled back in a high bun. Sunlight streamed through the large glass windows, casting my reflection onto the polished wooden floors. I adjusted the pearl necklace around my neck. A gift I bought for myself after the Hong Kong deal was a smashing success. The sound of car horns echoed from the driveway. My heart pounded, but my face remained calm. They were here. I walked to the door, opened it, and greeted them with a radiant smile. Madison was the first to step in, dragging a massive suitcase, her face beaming as if she were still the queen of this house. "Sis," Madison chirped, eyes wide when she saw me. "You're here for the reunion too?" I tilted my head, a sly smile forming. "Oh, of course. I had to be here to welcome everyone." Before Madison could respond, my parents walked in. My mother was wrapped in her favorite faux fur coat, her eyes scanning every inch of the house as if inspecting her territory. My father trailed behind her, eyes sunken and tired. "Allison?" My mother stared at me, confusion evident on her face. "Why are you here?" "Why am I here?" I repeated, my tone calm. "Oh, I'm just here to welcome the special guests of the day." Madison frowned. "What are you talking about? This is my house." I let out a soft, almost pitying laugh. "Your house?" I pulled a folder from my coat pocket and held it up. "This is the new ownership certificate for this house. It was transferred 3 months ago. The new owner is... me." All three of them stood frozen, eyes wide with disbelief. Madison stared at the papers in my hand, her lips moving as if trying to form words. "You? You bought this house," Madison stammered. "With the money you stole from me," I said, locking eyes with her. "When you took my apartment, when you drained my savings, the money I spent 6 years working for." I decided I wasn't going to just sit back and let it happen. "And this is the result." My mother shook her head, her eyes glistening with tears. "Allison, you can't do this to your family. This house is where we made all our childhood memories. How could you?" "Oh, you want to talk about childhood memories?" I stepped closer to her, our faces inches apart. "Then do you remember the mornings I woke up at 5 to make breakfast for Madison? Or the times I had to take days off work to babysit her when she was unemployed and drunk?" My mother fell silent, her gaze dropping to the floor. "And Dad," I turned to my father, the man I once thought would protect me no matter what. "Do you remember the last time you called me a daughter to be proud of? Or do you only remember Madison, your perfect little princess?" My father clenched his jaw, not saying a word. Madison's hands balled into fists, her face flushing red. "What are you trying to prove, Allison? Do you think just because you have some money now, you can come back here and humiliate me?" I arched an eyebrow. "Humiliate you? You think this is humiliation? You don't know what humiliation is yet." I walked to the kitchen counter, pulled out another stack of papers and placed them on the table in front of them. "These are reservations for suites at the 5-star hotel downtown. All rooms are ready for you to host this year's family reunion." My mother's eyes widened. "A hotel? Why do we need to go to a hotel? This is our house." "Your house?" I sneered. "No, this is my house. And today, I'm not in the mood to host any family reunion here. If you want to keep partying, the 5-star hotel is the perfect choice." Madison stormed up to me, her eyes blazing. "You're a monster. How long have you been planning this?" "Since the day you took my apartment," I said, my voice icy. "And you know what, Madison? This is just the beginning." Madison clenched her fists, her eyes burning with fury. You'll pay for this, Allison, I swear. I've already paid more than enough, Madison, I said, my gaze unyielding. Now it's your turn. Outside the window, the waves crashed against the shore in powerful, relentless surges. But this time, I wasn't the weak, helpless girl standing on the sidelines of my own life. 3 weeks after the tense confrontation at the beach house, I sat by the window of my new apartment in downtown Los Angeles, watching the city lights shimmer like stars. The beach house was now rented out, bringing in a steady income. I no longer felt the need to hold on to it. It was just a piece of the past I was determined to leave behind. My phone rang. It was my mother's number. I stared at the screen for a long time. Since that day, she hadn't called. Madison hadn't either. It was as if they both decided I no longer existed. Finally, I picked up. Hello? Allison? My mother's voice was weak and shaky. Can I see you? I sighed. What do you want? I just want to see you, please. I closed my eyes, forcing myself to stay calm. Fine. Meet me at the cafe on Market Street at 3. At 3 o'clock, I sat in the corner booth, my hands wrapped around a steaming latte. My mother walked in, looking thinner and more frail than I remembered. She sat down across from me, eyes hesitant. What do you want to say? I started. She looked at me, her eyes red-rimmed. I've been thinking a lot since that day. I was wrong. I can't believe things have gone this far. I crossed my arms over my chest. Really? Then why didn't you say anything when Madison took my apartment? When she spent all my savings? What did you do? My mother dropped her head, her fingers twisting together. I knew everything, but I kept quiet because I was afraid of losing Madison. I let out a bitter laugh. So you'd rather lose me than lose Madison? My mother reached into her bag and pulled out a small black box, placing it on the table. Open it. I frowned, hesitating before lifting the lid. Inside were old photographs, letters, and crayon drawings I'd made as a child. There was even the letter I'd sent her when I moved into my first apartment after college, sharing my dreams and plans. The letter I thought she had thrown away. You kept all of these? I asked, my voice thick with emotion. I never forgot you, Allison. My mother replied, tears streaming down her cheeks. I was too weak. I thought if I admitted Madison was wrong, she'd hate me. But now, I realize I've lost you. I looked into my mother's eyes, and the coldness I'd been holding onto began to melt away. But the pain was still there, like a wound that hadn't fully healed. So, what do you want now? My mother reached for my hand, her eyes pleading. I want you to give me a chance. I'm not asking you to forgive me right away, but please, let me show you that I still care. I pulled my hand away and stood up. You know what? I once wished that just once, you'd stand by me. But you didn't. Now I need time to think. My mother watched me, her face stricken. Allison, can't you? I turned my back and walked away without looking back. 2 days later, I was sitting in my office, eyes fixed on the computer screen when the door burst open. Madison rushed in, her face pale and exhausted. This, she shouted, her eyes red and swollen. You have to help me! I looked up calmly. Help you? And why would I do that? The company I was working for just found out I faked my degree, Madison said, her voice breaking. They fired me. I have nowhere to go. I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. Really? Mom's perfect little princess now needs help from the daughter she always called a failure? Madison dropped to her knees in front of me, tears streaming down her face. I know I was wrong, Allison. I know I was terrible to you. But I have nothing now. No money, no job, and Mom Mom doesn't know what to do. I looked down at Madison, the sister who stole my apartment, who humiliated me in front of everyone. Now she was on her knees, begging for my help. I leaned down, lifting her chin to look her in the eyes. You know, Madison, I used to be you, always begging for someone to notice me. But I'm not that weak, Allison, anymore. If you want to start over, I'll help you. But just this once. And if you ever betray me again, Madison nodded frantically, her tears falling like rain. I promise, I won't betray you again. Fine, I said, standing up. Then get up. I'll give you a job. But you're starting from the bottom, no exceptions. Madison grabbed my hand, sobbing. Thank you. Thank you so much. When Madison left my office, I turned back to my desk, gazing out the window. The afternoon sun streamed in, illuminating the room. Maybe, just maybe, I'd found a glimmer of light in the wreckage of the past. But could I trust them again? I wasn't sure. But at least, I was willing to try. The Hong Kong skyline stretched endlessly, skyscrapers glittering like stars against the night sky. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment, holding a glass of wine, eyes fixed on the city slowly drifting into sleep. It had been 3 months since I arrived here, starting my new role as the International Vice President of Westfield & Co. Everything happened so quickly that I barely had time to breathe. Life was busy and successful, yet strangely lonely. The phone rang. It was Madison. I set the wine glass down, my finger hovering over the screen. Finally, I answered. Aloud. Sis, Madison's voice sounded weak and shaky. I just wanted to tell you that I got my first job since getting fired. I closed my eyes, exhaling a sigh of relief. Really? You did it? Yes, Madison said, her voice a bit stronger now. I had to start as a receptionist, but at least I'm working for real this time, not living off someone else. That's what I always wanted you to understand, I said, feeling a weight lift off my chest. You're growing up, Madison. Madison was silent for a moment. Sis, are you still angry at me? I looked out at the vast cityscape, the lights still flickering in the distance. You know, Madison, forgiveness isn't easy. I was furious with you, but holding on to that anger only made me more exhausted. So, I'll forgive you, but with conditions. What conditions? Madison asked, her voice tense. You have to stand on your own 2 feet, I said firmly. No more asking Mom for money, no more relying on anyone else. You have to support yourself, and if you can do that, my door will always be open for you. Madison began to cry. I understand. I won't let you down. I nodded, but said nothing more. Though I had forgiven her, my trust was still far from restored. The next day, as I was going through financial reports on my computer screen, there was a knock at the door. Come in, I said without looking up. The door opened, and my mother walked in. I was so shocked that I couldn't speak. She stood there, wearing a simple dress, clutching her handbag tightly. Allison. She looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. I know you're busy, but I need to talk to you. You flew all the way from Los Angeles? I asked, still struggling to believe she was actually standing in front of me. Yes, she said, lowering her eyes. I needed to talk to you in person. I've been thinking a lot since that day. I stood up and gestured to the chair across from me. Have a seat. My mother sat down, still clutching her bag. Allison, I've made so many mistakes. I let Madison walk all over you. I didn't protect you when you needed me most. I let my fear of losing Madison make me turn my back on you. And now I realize I've lost both of my daughters. My eyes stung. Every word she said was like a knife piercing through my heart. I went to see Madison, she continued. She's trying to change. She found a real job, and I think it's because of you. You made her see that no one can rely on others forever. Mom, I choked up. Do you know how much I suffered? Watching Madison live in my apartment? Watching you and Dad defend her without a single thought for me? Before bestowing her grace on her son, Odom kissed her forehead, and she kissed his mother. During his marriage, Allison bowed her head. My mother bowed her head. I'm going to miss you. I don't want to lose you. I took a deep breath. You know what? You lost me a long time ago, but if you really want to change, I'll give you a chance. My mother's eyes widened, hope shining through the tears. You forgive me? I won't forget what you did, I said, my voice still cold but softening slightly. But I'll open the door for you to step back in. The rest is up to you. Whether you're strong enough to rebuild what you broke. My mother nodded, tears streaming down her face. I will try. I promise. I stood up and walked over, pulling her into a hug. She held on to me as if afraid I might vanish at any moment. In that moment, I felt the warmth I had been longing for all these years. That evening, I sat on the balcony, looking up at the night sky. A message from Madison popped up on my phone screen. I just sent you a picture of my new apartment. I'm paying the rent myself. I hope that one day I can invite you over. I looked at the photo, a small but tidy and clean apartment. Madison was standing by the window, smiling. I replied, I'll be waiting for that day. I put the phone down, closed my eyes, and took a deep breath. From here in Hong Kong, I was beginning a new chapter. No longer the weak Allison, no longer the abandoned girl. But I would still keep the door open. For Madison, for my mother, and for anyone who truly wanted to change. Because I'd learned that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the past, it's about opening your heart to something better. And this time, I was ready. My apartment in Hong Kong was now fully furnished. The wide glass walls opened up to a view of the glittering Victoria Harbor. Inside, the living room was neatly arranged, with a modern gray sofa and an abstract painting I had just bought last week. I sat in the chair, holding a cup of hot tea, my eyes following the boats drifting lazily on the water. Everything was perfect, at least on the outside. But inside, I still felt an invisible void, like something hadn't quite been filled. My phone buzzed, a message from Madison. I just got hired as a marketing assistant. I did the application myself without anyone's help. I've changed, sis. I smiled and typed back. I'm proud of you. Setting the phone down, I leaned back in the chair, my mind drifting to the past. Back then, I thought that getting justice was the ultimate goal. When I took back the beach house, when I threw them out, I thought I'd won. But in reality, the emptiness still haunted me every night. Maybe what I truly craved wasn't revenge, but recognition. I wanted my mother to see me, not as the girl she always considered a failure, but as a woman standing on her own, successful without relying on anyone. I wanted Madison to realize her mistakes and change. Not for me, but for herself. And in the end, I'd achieved that. But throughout it all, I also realized something else. Success isn't about revenge. It's about rediscovering your own worth, about rebuilding from the shattered pieces of old wounds. One afternoon, as I sat in my office, Lucas walked in, carrying a small gift bag. Allison, he said, placing the bag on my desk with a smile. Congratulations on 1 year of success in Hong Kong. I laughed, opening the bag. Inside was a framed photo. Me standing on the rooftop of the Westfield & Co. building, looking confidently toward the horizon. I took it secretly. Lucas winked. You had no idea. I stared at the photo, emotions swelling in my chest. Thank you, Lucas. You've always been there when I had no one else. That's not true, Lucas said, sitting down across from me, his eyes serious. You're not alone. You have me. You have Madison. who's trying every day to change. And you have your mother. She's trying to reconnect with you, little by little. I sighed, gazing out the window. Family isn't about blood. It's about the people willing to change and walk with you when you succeed, even if it's late. Lucas nodded. And now? You've built a new family. People who genuinely appreciate you for who you are. That night, I returned to my apartment and opened the box my mother had given me before she returned to Los Angeles. Inside were old keepsakes. The letter I'd written to her when I got accepted to college, a drawing Madison made for me when we were kids, and the bracelet my father had given me on my 18th birthday. I held the bracelet, the cold metal sending a chill through me as it awakened memories long buried. My phone buzzed again. It was a video call from Madison. "Allison!" Madison said excitedly when I answered. She was sitting on the old couch in her new rented apartment, surrounded by unpacked boxes. "What are you up to?" I asked, trying to suppress a smile. "I just finished my first week at the new job," Madison said, her face glowing. "My boss said I have good communication skills and might be considered for a management assistant position if I keep it up." "Really?" I asked, feeling a surge of pride. Madison nodded, her eyes shining. "I just wanted to thank you, Allison. If it weren't for you, I never would have learned how to stand up and start over." "No, Madison," I said gently. "You did that yourself. I just helped you see your own strength." Madison was silent for a moment. "I miss you, Allison. I hope one day we can sit down, have tea, and talk like real sisters." I bit my lip, looking up at the ceiling to hold back the tears. "I hope for that too, Madison. And I believe that day will come." The next morning, I woke up early and decided to take a walk along Victoria Harbor. The sea breeze gently tousled my hair, carrying with it the familiar scent of salt. I stopped in front of a small cafe, walked inside, and ordered a hot latte. As I sat down, I took out my phone and sent a message to my mother. "Mom, I hope you're doing well. Whenever you're ready, come visit me in Hong Kong. I'll show you all the places I've been. The door is still open." And I'm still waiting. I set the phone down and took a deep breath. Hong Kong sparkled with city lights. The sky stretched out endlessly, no longer weighing down on me like it once did. Because now, I had truly found myself. I had redefined my worth, not by proving myself to those who didn't value me, but by embracing who I was and letting the world see that I had truly changed. Allison's story wasn't just a journey from pain to success. It was an awakening to her own worth and the true meaning of family. Through the hurt and betrayal, she learned that success wasn't about getting revenge or proving herself to those who never appreciated her. Instead, she redefined her value, rebuilt her life from a foundation of self-respect and independence. Allison chose to forgive but not forget, to open her heart but not be naive. And ultimately, she found her true peace. What do you think of Allison's transformation? Was her forgiveness and open heart worth it after everything her family put her through? Share your thoughts and don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful stories about family and life.